impressive turnout for what we think is a very important issue, not only for Aurora, but for the state of Illinois, our technology future here in the state. And it's very, very happy to be here in Aurora. Great community. Everybody knows second largest community in the state of Illinois, so I think it's great to be here. The few things I wanted to go ahead and recognize is, first of all, thanks to the mayor for being here. We'll go ahead and turn to him very quickly here. But thanks for hosting us here. So the Illinois Chamber Foundation is an entity that allows the Illinois Chamber to go ahead and educate the public and policymakers on items specifically related to economic development in the state of Illinois. So it's a charitable foundation, and we are very, very happy to put out this report today that brings us all together that talks about the importance of data centers in our economic future. It is not too much to say that this is the equivalent of the railroad expansion in the United States of America. Interstate travel via roads and highways, telephones. This is that important. And it's a growing market, and what we will find out today from our foundation, our study sponsors, is that Illinois is growing in this area, but we don't get nearly enough of what we should get based on our history, based on the economic potential for our state. We're losing out to states like Iowa on major projects, and while I kind of like Iowa, we should not be losing out. Aurora should not be losing out, Illinois should not be losing out to rural Iowa for major economic development. This is billions of dollars at stake. Illinois should be getting its fair share. We know that the atmosphere in Washington and in Springfield is a little difficult when it comes time to talk about expanding incentives for investment. We recognize that. But you see from the maps here, other states have figured it out. We're now the outlier, not because we have an incentive, but because we don't have an incentive. And that is the major piece that I believe is the difference between Illinois getting billions of dollars of additional investment in our economy, new tax revenues at the local and state level, and jobs that are very important and very high paying. If we want Illinois to be viewed as a tech center, this type of incentive is very, very important. Again, we're an outlier, not because we have one, but because we don't have one. So what we're done here today with the foundation, we very much appreciate all of our sponsors to help make this happen. Very, again, happy to have the mayor host us here today. But really, we need to tell the story about what is involved with data centers. It is a little bit complex. It's not 1,000 jobs that are associated, but it is huge economic impacts. We've got to go ahead and tell the story in a way that it's a little more difficult, but that's why we're out here in January, so that we can talk to policymakers over the next few months, and hopefully at the end of session, when most things are going to happen, we can be in the mix to go ahead and have an important economic development incentive that allows us to compete with Iowa, with Indiana, with other states that we should be doing very, very much better. But other states, frankly, are taking advantage of the fact that we have not stepped up in this way. So let me go ahead, and Keith Wheeler is going to be up here, but I just want to thank him for being here, state representative as well. And then Joe Henning from the Aurora Chamber of Commerce, great friend for many years. You run a great chamber here, among the best in the state. I think you all already know that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mayor Richard Urban. Thank you for hosting us, and great to hear from you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to Aurora. Thank you to the Illinois Chamber of Commerce for coming to the City of Lights for such an important announcement. And first, let me recognize some of our elected officials and dignitaries here in the room. We have from Congressman Foster's office, Hillary Dink. City Council, we have our 4th Ward Alderman, Bill Donnell, 5th Ward Alderman, Carl Franco, our Alderman at Large, Sherman Jenkins. Sherman is also the chairman of our African American Quad County Chamber of Commerce. Of course, Joe Henning, our Aurora Regional Chamber of Commerce. Our labor representatives, Mark Gately and Brian Dahl. And just as important, and maybe most important, I'd like to thank Support Tech for allowing us to use this beautiful space. Isn't this a beautiful space? And also, let's give it up for our dignitaries and elected officials. And then thank all of you for coming this morning and sharing this time to talk about this important issue in the state of Illinois and to the city of Aurora. Aurora has long been known as the City of Lights. In recent years, however, we have also become the City of Light Speed as we focus on fiber optics, innovation, technology, and global connectivity. Allow me to show a short presentation that highlights Aurora's technological progress. Yes, lights, please.
In the 19th century, electric light transformed our cities. In the 21st, another power will remake us. Inspiration, innovation, design, smart technology. The cities of tomorrow will be lit by our connectedness, or they won't shine at all. The time for change is now. But change is hard. We're in the middle of a new industrial revolution. So, how does a city with history embrace its future? Welcome to Aurora, a city of 200,000 with a simple goal: to lead the Fox Valley area and the state of Illinois in technological advancement, to be our region's smartest city. The city of Aurora recognized the need for its own more efficient data network in 2005. Groundbreaking on our citywide fiber optic network began 3 years later. An initial ring of 40 miles has since been supplemented through expansions and partnerships, resulting in our present size of more than 130 miles of fiber optic cable. City leaders helped to launch an independent not-for-profit business, OnLight Aurora, in 2012 to open access far beyond government buildings. Now the network connects our anchor institutions: healthcare, education, social service, arts, and business across the area. OnLight Aurora services 4 data centers. The network saves the city almost $500,000 every year and generates additional revenue. And yet, it's still at only 5% capacity. Our infrastructure is prepared for so much more. But fiber alone doesn't make a city smart. Its people do. Aurora's new technology strategic plan calls for investment and advancement in 3 areas beyond our infrastructure. We're increasing safety through cybersecurity initiatives and modernization of police and fire dispatch and record systems. We're achieving savings through a more efficient, centralized IT department and through intelligent data analytics. And we're engaging hearts and minds with public innovations like smart city kiosks and a downtown city park where technology will soon power everything from event information and parking to security and environmental care. Aurora's transformation begins by making government networks more efficient, but it can't end until all Aurorans are connected. That's why we're exploring long-term projects like citywide 5G and an expanded public Wi-Fi network to reach underserved communities. And we're partnering with businesses and schools to plant the seeds of future economic opportunity. In the 19th century, electric light transformed our city. Aurora was among the nation's first to light our streets. It's how we earned the nickname City of Lights. But tomorrow's cities run on more than light. They'll run at light speed. They'll be powered by our connections to each other and enhanced by state-of-the-art technology. And Aurora will be proud to light the way into this next industrial revolution.
Give it up for Aurora. Today we are here to further push for economic development in the state of Illinois, the counties of Kane, Kendall, and DuPage, and the city of Aurora. As Illinois heads into the next century as a competitive state, Aurora understands the needs to create and focus competitive economic development tools for the next 100 years. The reality is simple and clear. Data is part of the backbone of the modern economy, and data centers are that foundation. Aurora is proud to be the home of many data centers, and we have worked hard to build an infrastructure where data centers can survive, thrive, and take us well into the future. The economy fuels the demand for data centers, and that capital investment fuels the demand for construction, which most often and most importantly uses skilled union labor. However, to put Illinois in a position to compete with our neighboring states, Illinois must adopt stronger data center incentives comparable to other states throughout our nation. In 2017, Apple announced that it would build a 400,000 square feet data center on a 2,000-acre parcel of land in rural Iowa. The cost of construction was announced as $1.3 billion, with 550 people being involved in the construction and beginning operations at the facility. On an ongoing basis, Apple committed to employ 50 full-time workers. The report before us today helps to illustrate what that would mean for Kane County and Aurora. Connectivity, accessibility, power, and skilled workforce would be sufficient to support a large data center, more large data centers here in the city of Aurora, all which we have as far as those elements. If the data center such as Apple were to come here, it would potentially provide approximately 1,798 construction jobs and 50 operational jobs, $120 million in associated construction wages, plus $3.5 million in associated operational wages and salaries, $274.9 million in economic output from construction, and $12.7 million in economic output from operations in the Kane County economy. A new large data center construction such as the one in Iowa would have a potential total economic impact on the city and county's economy, leading to approximately 2,744 jobs, $165.6 million in labor income, $420 million in economic output, and $53.8 million in tax revenue. That's a lot of money. We know there is something happening here in Aurora. We know that. What we want and need to do is to continue to grow our data centers in our city, counties, and our state. Aurora currently has 90 miles of fiber optic network with connections to major data centers in the Midwest, providing us global access. Has affordable land, has easy access to power and utility in the area, is excluded from the cloud tax in Chicago, which is one of the main reasons the Chicago Mercantile Exchange moved from downtown Chicago to Aurora. The strength of the future in our area's economy depends on Illinois leading the way to attract data center investment and give our skilled laborers the opportunity to build and maintain this facility. Let's grow together in Illinois at light speed. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, from Dr. Fletcher Mangan, CEO of Mangan Economics. Doctor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Fletcher Mangum. I'm CEO of Mangum Economics. Before I get started on talking about the report that we produced, first let me thank you for this weather outside today, because it's really making me appreciate the 45 degrees that we left in Virginia when we made our way here yesterday. I never realized how warm 45 degrees was until this morning. Last year we were approached by the Illinois Chamber of Commerce Foundation and asked to produce a report on the economic and fiscal impact that data centers make to Illinois and the economic and fiscal impact that they could make to Illinois. And I've been asked to come here today to talk very briefly about some of the major points that came out of that analysis. One of the major points was that data centers are an exponentially growing industry within North America and within the world at large. And the reason for that is the demand for digitized data is growing exponentially. And just to give you one example of why that is the case, one single self-autonomous or autonomous Google car generates 1 gigabyte of data for every second that it's in operation, or 2 petabytes of data over the course of a year. Chicago is a very important data center market. We're the 3rd largest market in the Chicago area. It's the 3rd largest market in the United States, but you're also the data center market in Illinois. You comprise about 93% of all data center activity within the state. Data centers have a large impact on Illinois. Our study showed that in 2017, data centers generate or support 31,500 jobs across the state. Now that's total impact, so that includes the direct impact of data centers along with the economic ripple effects that occurs as a result of that direct impact. They also support $2 billion in labor income and approximately $322 million in state and local tax revenue. Now, I mentioned that data centers are an exponentially growing industry. One aspect of that is that it generates a lot of construction work. And in 2017 in Illinois, data center construction alone generated 820 construction jobs within the state, along with $54 million in labor income. As Todd pointed out in his beginning, or his initial comments as we began this presentation, you're falling behind. And that was one of the key results that came out of this study. And I think one of the interesting data points that point that out is that in 2017, you grew by 7%. The northeastern Illinois grew by 7.7% in terms of its overall data center market, but Atlanta grew by 12%. Northern Virginia grew by 16%. Phoenix, which is an up-and-coming metro in this industry, grew by 26%. So one of the important things about economics is that we not only look at how things are growing or declining, we look at how they are growing, increasing in terms of growth or decreasing in terms of growth. And what's happening is that there are other markets that are increasing faster than you are. You're doing okay, but you're falling behind as a result of that. The other thing it's important to point out, as I mentioned before, is that Chicago is it for the data center market here. There's very little data center activity outside of the Chicago area, the greater Chicago area in Illinois. Our analysis showed that a lot of that has to do, or almost all of it has to do with data center incentives, or in Illinois, the lack of a data center incentive. In 2009, there were 7 states that offered data center incentives. Currently, there are 30 states that offer data center incentives. Illinois is not one of those states. And as you can see from the map, you're surrounded by states that offer data center incentives. This lack of data center incentives, importantly, also explains why there's very little activity outside of Chicago. Data centers have a reason to be in Chicago. They have less reason to be in communities outside of the state or outside of Chicago. Data centers could have a big impact on those localities. As the mayor pointed out, a part of our analysis looked at what would happen if the data center that Apple's constructing in Waukee, Iowa, had been constructed in Kane County. The impact from that would have been a little bit less than 2,000 construction jobs. The direct impact from that would have been a little less than 2,000 construction jobs, 50 ongoing data center jobs, $120 million in labor income for construction, $3.5 million in data center wages, and approximately, in terms of direct impact, $60 million in state taxes. So this could have a big impact on localities across the state. Virginia provides a really good reference point for how all this works. Virginia is very much like Illinois in that we had one data center market, Northern Virginia, largest data center market in the world. We had one data center market until 2010. 2010, Virginia began to offer data center incentives. Shortly after that, Microsoft constructed or began to construct their largest data center on the East Coast, which is in rural Mecklenburg County on the southern foot of Virginia. Since then, we've had $1 billion investment announcement by Facebook in Henrico County, just outside of Richmond. QTS is also expanding their facility there. Facebook's investment probably will grow to $3 billion. So what the data incentive did was it caused data center growth outside of Northern Virginia, and it could have a very similar impact in terms of Illinois. There are 3 bottom lines, or 3 important points to take away from the study that we did for the state. One of them is that data centers are a fast-growing industry, exponentially fast-growing industry, and they have a significant economic impact. The second is that Chicago, or Illinois in general, is falling behind the growth that we see in other data center metro areas. And the third is that incentives can be a key tool in aiding Illinois in changing that growth trajectory, catching up with other metropolitan areas that are now surpassing you. And it can also be a key tool in terms of dispersing that economic development, that data center activity to localities that are outside of the state. I'd like to ask Rafael Rack to step up. Rafael is VP of Digital Realty's Portfolio Management Group, and I believe he's going to talk to you today about Digital Realty's footprint within the state and also their aspirations for what that footprint might look like.
Thank you. So just a little bit of background of who Digital Realty is. We are a publicly traded real estate company. We are the 8th largest real estate investment fund in the country. We're traded on the New York Stock Exchange. We're on the S&P 500 index, so one of the 500 largest companies in the country. Our growth and our success has been the growth and success of our digital economy. So as consumers are more connected to our devices, that means more fiber infrastructure, that means more data centers, more servers that are housed in those data centers that are supported by our facilities. We have over 200 data centers here globally, 33 markets, we have 33 million square feet. We support about 2,300 firms within our data centers. We have been very supportive of this economic impact study. We think it's critical. It provides a concise overview of the importance of data centers to our digital economy, but most importantly, we hope it educates the public, public officials, business leaders here on how important these buildings are and these facilities are to local communities. Just as a brief example, we acquired in 2000, about a year and a half ago, our Franklin Park facility outside of Chicago. This was the former Motorola headquarters. It was vacant since 1970-ish range. It really was an eyesore for the city of Franklin Park. We acquired that site about a year and a half ago, have redeveloped it, putting up a new shell, data center, and have hopefully made the city there locally proud with that facility. Just overall with our portfolio here in Chicago, we've got about 3 million square feet of data center capacity here. We started in Chicago about 2006 when we acquired 350 Cermak, which is the most interconnected data center in the central United States. From there, we've grown our footprint considerably. We've got about 600 employees locally, but when you consider our customers, our tenants, and their footprint and how they utilize our data centers, we support about 11,000 jobs here regionally, and we hope to grow that footprint. That's our goal here in Illinois. It has become harder, as we talked about earlier. There are states regionally that are enticing that investment of data centers into their markets, which is drawing a lot of the demand out of Illinois, so we're having a hard time competing. We hope to reverse that with the help of local government officials and business leaders. Hopefully we can bring those investment dollars back into Illinois. Thank you very much. Next is Alex Parra with Equinix.
Good morning, everybody. We're still thawing out. I flew in from Dallas, and my Uber got in a car accident on the way over. Luckily, thanks to the good networks in Aurora, I was able to get a Lyft that picked me up alongside the Uber. So I'm Alex Parra. I'm the Regional Director of Asset Management for Equinix. I oversee our portfolio in the central U.S., which includes Dallas, Chicago, and Houston. I'm honored to be here today with my industry peers discussing this very important effort and report with you. It was a great report published by Mangum. As a quick background, Equinix operates globally in 52 countries with over 200 data centers. We found success by investing in our core strategies of interconnection, global reach, and operational excellence. We're proud to have called Chicago, Illinois a core market for over 2 decades now. As one of our first locations, we entered Chicago in 1999 with a significant investment in 350 Cermak, Digital now our landlord, a little bit of co-opetition there. Focused on building ecosystems and exchanges. Initially, we focused on carrier and financial ecosystems, both mentioned in the Mangum report, connecting latency-sensitive customers to low-latency networks in a carrier-neutral environment. The strategy proved sound for us, which established the building as the most interconnected in the Midwest with the largest internet exchange. In 2007, in support of our prospects and customers in 350 Cermak, we made a large investment in Elk Grove. This gave us the opportunity to provide another location in the market and a purpose-built data center facility outside of the Chicago metropolitan core. We continue to make large investments in both of our Illinois locations as our customers grow and evolve. What's important to know is the ecosystems of today are not going to be the ecosystems of tomorrow. cloud, Internet of Things or IoT, connected vehicles, and lots of applications and data uses we aren't aware of yet are changing the landscape of data, how it's consumed, but more importantly, how it's exchanged, processed, and stored. We've seen some of the impacts of these changes in states with attractive data center tax incentives, which we've highlighted in the report. We believe the benefits we've seen in other states from these sorts of incentives provide the foundation that will help maintain Illinois as a leader in tech growth as we enter this phase, next phase of our digital journey. Thank you so much. I'll introduce my industry colleagues, John and Jeff, next.
Oh, I'm back up. Okay. Oh, so actually, I'm going to ask. So it's the foundation report. It's charitable. We can't tell you to vote for a bill today. We may get around to that later. But Keith Wheeler is a unique individual in the Illinois legislature. He knows technology. He's an advocate. Plus, he's just a pro-business and a great guy. So we definitely, we're very happy to have him here today. Want to give him a chance to say a few words.
Good morning, everybody. First, let me say thank you to the Chamber, both the Illinois Chamber and my wonderful friends at the Aurora Chamber. I know Joe Henning's here. I had the privilege to serve with Joe as the board chairman with him a few years ago, and what an amazing group that is, and I'm very proud of the work that they do. I also want to say thank you to the city of Aurora and the mayor, especially all the aldermen that are here today. Thank you. I'm really proud to be a representative who gets to represent just a small part of the west side of Aurora, but I champion Aurora very strongly in Springfield for a lot of important reasons. One of which is Aurora has everything that we need in this environment we're talking about today to be amazingly successful. And it's unique. The fact that the forethought was put in place, the infrastructure's already here. What we need now is the tools. The economic development team in Aurora needs the toolkit that we have not to provide them from Springfield, so we can compete with all of our neighboring states and every state in the country as far as what we can provide when it comes to data center opportunities. And those opportunities, we've talked about 1 million important numbers, from jobs to economic development to tax revenue, but let's put it back in perspective of how most people would understand what a data center is and does. And it's these two things. Everything we do on here, all the cool things we do here, most all that happens inside a data center. There's some great tools here, obviously. The hardware's awesome. But the really cool things happen inside these data centers. And we are uniquely positioned to benefit from some important legislation that I will be hopefully moving forward with my colleagues in Springfield. This should be a bipartisan issue. This should be something we should get done this year. That's my goal. And I'm looking forward to working hard with the chamber locally, at the state level, and all my colleagues across the state. We all benefit from this. So again, thank you for having me here this morning. This is a wonderful opportunity for Aurora. Thank you.
All right, very good. Lots of great information. So let's go ahead and open it up to any questions.
So this all sounds wonderful. There's great statistics. It looks like everybody makes a lot of money doing this. A number of other states have already jumped on board. So I guess my question is, why haven't we already jumped on board as the state of Illinois? What has been holding us back from being an incentive type of state up to this point?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of reasons there. It's any industry is complex, many factors there. And again, I can't get too much into direct advocacy for a special bill because it's foundation today. But I will tell you that we've had, not a whole lot has happened in Springfield over the last 4 years, let's face it. But I think that what we've been really missing has been this study that connects the dots and tells policymakers what's really happening in the rest of the nation without us. So I really think that our authors talked about Virginia. That's great information that yes, this area and Aurora is uniquely positioned to really take advantage of some kind of incentive. But you know what? So is Champaign. So is Bloomington. This is a statewide effort. And so that Virginia example of taking a hub that existed and allowing it to expand, but then also expand to other parts of the state, I think that's a really compelling story that hasn't existed until we had this study. So I think this is going to be really important to change the dynamic. Let's face it, when we went in, a lot of people said, oh, you're just asking for another subsidy. No, now we've got a real story to tell as a result of this study, and we're very happy about it. We did cover a lot of ground, so, yes, sir.
In an optimistic world, what would be the process and the next steps and the timing, in your view, to see this move forward?
I think that we will continue to tell this story across other parts of the state. We're heading to Chicago. I do think we're going to go to communities like Bloomington and Champaign to get a statewide perspective on this, so it becomes a statewide priority. Again, you're uniquely qualified to really take advantage more in those other communities, but we do want it to be statewide. So I think we're going to tell the story, and we've got to go ahead and get in front of policymakers in Springfield, tell the story down there, and really get them to kind of shift their view. I referenced it early on. It's kind of the political atmosphere. It's how, everybody's always coming to Springfield looking for another incentive, a subsidy. Ours is the one that has the story behind it that really, really makes sense. It's very compelling as a result of this study. So I think that's the game changer. Now, there are a lot of issues, a lot of priorities down there, so we'll have to cut through the rest of those. But again, I think that this is very compelling. I mean, this map gets us about half of the way there, I think, that we are behind other states. We're not trying to be, cutting edge, even though it would have been great. But this is a growing industry, and we're losing out. So we will make that case very aggressively.
What kind of incentives do you think Illinois should be offering?
Again, I've got to keep a little bit of distance between direct advocacy and the basics we've got here. But if you look at other states, and that information is readily out there, the two big things that I believe, and maybe our industry folks would like to chime in, the two things that really come in is that the building materials, not having sales tax applied there, or incentives for the building materials, because that's really, when you talk about $1 billion build-outs, that's labor and materials. And then because they use an awful lot of electricity, and that's part of the reason that Illinois is in really good position, because we have good rates, we've got good quality supply. My folks from ComEd are here. But electricity quality and availability is a huge part of the reason Illinois should be at the front of the line. But it also comes with the utility tax. So a lot of other states will go ahead and create an exemption, or at least a partial exemption, on the utility tax, because that is such a huge input to their ongoing costs. Those are the two major items. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in, but
I would just probably highlight the sales tax on IT infrastructure spend. So the servers that are put in place in data centers,
right.
I think are
so I was imprecise. By building materials, yes, the servers, because the servers also have to be, they've got a life of about every 3 or 4 years, I think.
Yeah.
So that's a huge expense going forward. So it's not just the initial build out. Those things use a lot of electricity, and they get worn out after 3-4 years. So that's an ongoing cost that other states have recognized and said, every time you got to change them out, that's more labor, that's more revenue coming into us when that happens.
Thank you.
One of the big differences that struck me between the two Auroras would be where those 50 tech people would like to reside. And I think we have a much better access to the quality labor here and that want to be here. Will there be any potential new incentives along the long-term job side of things, whether there's any credits, anything of that nature on the labor side of it? That's hard for a city to do. That's something we need help at the state level as far as looking at how we make their operational costs remain low, yet have that really good job that labor pool that we have right here.
Yeah, so there are a lot of, I think that's a great idea. We're very open to any of that. So everything from maybe a training expense is something that I think our members tell us all the time, that getting our workforce up and running, that would be something to address it. But I don't know if you're maybe even referencing things like you reference where they want to live, if it's portable housing or if it's something along those lines. But we're open to any and all ideas that make sense, and that we can reach what we hope is a bipartisan consensus that this is a great part of Illinois' future and we need to move ahead. Okay. All right. Well, we'll be hanging around for a little bit, I think, afterwards. So thank you all for coming out. This is a great turnout. Thank you all. Incredibly important issue. Thanks to Mayor again for hosting us, as well as our hosts here. This is not the end of it. We are going to be talking about this issue, hopefully, for months and not years. But this is a great kickoff to our efforts, and thank you all for coming out this morning. Stay warm.